A gun recognizes a gun. Stephen Pressfield from the book Turning Pro. And that's exactly what Dr. Ken Thomas is, a pro in every sense of the word. He lives the lifestyle he preaches, whether it's swimming in the cold Pacific Ocean, fasting, working out, hiking. The conversation you are about to see is a lot like the conversations we have in private. We can go on for a long time. We love talking shop. We covered the importance of grip strength, dementia, which is very personal to both of us because we've both been personally affected by it in our family, heart health, and the importance of a balanced fitness program. We covered a lot of other topics too as well. I hope you enjoy listening as much as we enjoyed having the conversation. Hey, Dr. Thomas, I know in our last conversation, we had a few topics we wanted to go over, and both of us agreed about grip strength. Whether you're a teenager, elite athlete, you are in your golden years, why should people be aware of grip strength? And yeah, why should people be aware of their grip strength?
You know your grip strength because they're now correlating it to full body fitness and health, and it's kind of a marker for your future health and future ability to be functional in this world, and to be certainly for seniors to be able to. I mean, simple things: opening up jars and driving and getting off the ground, and taking care of yourself, getting dressed. But it does correlate to your other strength. It's surprising. I have some patients that are extremely physical and strong, yet their grip strength is actually poor. And so I have them on grip strength programs to try to strengthen that. And in fact, I wanted to maybe lend you what's called a dynamometer, which is a gripping tool that you can use. Maybe you could borrow it for a weekend and test some of your clients to see what they're at, so they have a baseline at least. Because of all the work I do with my hands, and I also have a hill that I have to do a lot of gardening and weeding, I've got a really good grip strength, and I'm happy about that. But it's surprising how many people have a pretty weak grip strength, and even though they're strong in other ways. So it might be good to have that tested. It's really quick. You just squeeze something 3 times with each hand, and it'll give you how many pounds that you're gripping. There's also a one where you can you pinch it with your thumb. You can get a thumb pinch strength as well. That's a commonly monitored strength for people with problems like carpal tunnel and repetitive overuse syndromes that usually from work, typing too much. It's usually computer use. So, and you also want to make sure you're balanced. You should be 10 pounds stronger on your dominant side than your non-dominant side. And if it's off, there could be a number of reasons for that, arthritis in the hand, or you have some nerve problems going from your neck into your hand. It could be a lot of things. Stroke, of course, going to make you weak, but it would be good for everyone to know their baseline just so they know where they're at. And one of the tests you can easily do is see how long you can hang for from a bar with your feet off the ground. And you can fiddle around and move whatever you want to do as long as your feet are off the ground. And they generally want women to be able to hold up their body weight for 60 seconds, whereas men for 90 seconds. And it's, it seems very simple to be able to do that, but you should try it and see. You'll be sweating. It's pretty incredible. The hand is one of the most beautiful things ever made in the universe, in my opinion, the way it works. So it would also help you with your overall fitness with your other exercises, with bench and pull downs and farmer carries and on and on and on. I'm a swimmer, so we also use our wrists a lot to pull through the water, and so I thought you might be interested in borrowing that.
Yeah, I would definitely take you up on that. I would say about 10 years ago, I had one of the original dynamometers that, and for whatever reason, we got away from that specific test, but we're going to bring that back. And I'm going to take you up on that. And completely agree. We do a lot of the same things as far as the grip strength. And if you think back in the day to caveman days, it was literally a survival mechanism. You're hanging from things, you're a hunter-gatherer, and we've lost a lot of that. I also read I believe we're the first generation that has a weaker grip strength than the previous generation.
Well, I almost expect that things are getting easier and easier. Everything's built to make our life easier. Easier is not always better, not always, but a lot of people aren't using tools or gardening anymore. They live in condos or townhomes. They don't
Yeah.
get out in the dirt and move things around. They're not maybe lifting weights. They're doing a lot of cardio, not using their hands very much. A lot of people do have sore hands and they feel weak from all the computer work they're doing. It's really tough on the hand and forearm to just be doing computers all day. And so there should be that should be addressed with people with either exercises. We do some, deep massage in the forearms and the hands, and I work on the fingers and the wrists to try to maximize their potential. And I do see gains in people, and the hanging, or if you don't want to hang or you don't have a place to hang, if you held up 2 dumbbells that equal your total body weight, you could also test it that way. And again, of course, you don't want to jump right into picking up 2 80-pound dumbbells, but
Right.
start lower and see how you do. Start with 40s or 50s and make sure you can do it. Your hand will get a bit sore from doing it at first, but I've really been doing well at the gym. Just in between sets, I'll just hang or just pick up some heavy dumbbells and just either just stand there, or if it's not my full body weight, then I'll do farmer carries and walk around with them. And if I can show you, if you can see this, I've noticed that I do better gripping the bar like this, not so much the thumb, but this is a good grip right here. And you can use your thumb any way you want, but you'll see that your thumb doesn't do a whole lot of the help. It's more the fingers. So I just wanted to show you that kind of thing, because some people think they need to get their thumb there, and sometimes it makes it even harder. So maybe play around with that and see which one works better for each person.
Yeah, I love all that stuff. Even, I would say about 10, 12 years ago, I was one of the first people to do heart rate variability training. There was only like 2 methods on there, and I did it with a lot of the professional fighters that I worked with. And what I also noted it would correlate to other things like grip strength. So, for those of you that don't know, we've got resting heart rate, and that's a marker of fitness and fatigue on the same day. But heart rate variability, it predicts your fitness fatigue levels. It forecasts it. And what I started seeing is when people had depressed heart HRV or they're fatigued, their grip strength would go down too as well. And there was a correlation between those two. The other things I would also do, and again, it predicts so much, is even shoulder issues. People that I find that have shoulder issues, their grip strength is not as strong as the non-affected side. There's exceptions to the rules, but I love all the stuff you said. The farmer's carry. I also love the upside down kettlebell carries too,
Right.
because now
Yeah.
it's strength and it's stability there.
Yeah.
And again, I've had an old fighting injury, not street fighting, but MMA, jiu-jitsu injury here. My stability and grip strength is not as good as the right side.
Yes. Yeah, you want the whole chain to be strong, all the way from the shoulder, elbow, wrist, fingers. They should all be working in unison, and you will definitely be stronger if all of those are working properly. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So yeah, you got to work on the whole thing. You can't
Yeah.
just work on one part of it. Just the hand. I mean, any more than that. You're right.
Yeah, and it's for everyday things, opening jars, it's shaking hands. The other thing that I would teach people is I look at grip strength as a strength signal. And one of the things I literally will teach people to do is to emphasize this is I'll have them squeeze their fist about 10%. I ask them, where do you feel it? And they'll feel it here. And I'll say, all right, do 30%. Where do you feel it? They start feeling it here. 75%. Where do they feel it? They can feel it go all the way up here. And then when you do this white knuckle grip, it creates this chain event of stiffness, and they can feel it all the way up the kinetic chain. And that's why it's so huge. It's for everything you do, push-ups, chin-ups. If you don't have command over your grip strength, you don't allow your strength to actually go up the kinetic chain. So it's a lot of, Dr. Stuart McGill refers to it as super stiffness.
And
And
also, it
it,
also be called recruitment because you're trying to
yes,
do everything. People even start tightening their neck when working out, just to try to use every little bit of them to do something.
yeah, 100%. So it's recruitment. And again, I've seen the same thing. You have athletes or people that are extremely strong, but they can't recruit their muscles and they don't have command over their muscles to turn them on and turn them off. And so we're definitely going to start reincorporating the measurement of the grip strength, but that's a staple of our workout program. Farmer's walk. I also like to do asymmetrical farmer's walk, meaning you have a heavier one here, a lighter one here. Now you're playing with the other things. Upside down kettlebells, like here, all the way up. And then obviously supporting your own body weight with the chin up and the chin up holds and different grips as well. Yeah.
And holding it, and you can do a weight in one hand and not the other. You can put your arm out so that you're balancing yourself a bit, but that's going to help work your core and legs. It works the whole body.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's easy to do, really, just as long as you have a space to walk in.
As long as you have a space to walk in. And I actually believe this is one of the fundamental markers of longevity. I think every single person should be able to lift heavy things, obviously in a safe environment. But that's one of the biggest things we get when people coming in. They'll be in their 40s or 50s, and their main motivation to work out is because they don't want to end up like their parents who
Mhm.
can't lift anything and they need help to do anything. And so it's not just being in shape, it's actually quality of life as well.
Putting sheets, the first sheet on your bed is hard, to get it around the mattress and taking it off the mattress and doing your laundry. I mean, it comes up constantly. Um, and it just gives you so much more freedom to have strength all overall. But certainly, what we're talking about with the grip, you start with that. The movement of fingers and the fine work we can do with our hands as humans is the newest part of the brain. That came last. So that was developed last, and it's a different part of the brain. But the other parts are older parts of the brain. So again, we're probably going to talk a little bit about dementia later, but having strength and lifting heavy things is good for your brain overall. And we can, like I said, talk about dementia later, but it will help ward off the beginnings of dementia, which is a fantastic thing. It's coming up more and more nowadays. People are getting it earlier, unfortunately.
What are you seeing that too? I know the literature is out there. There's people younger, and we've both been affected personally in our family by dementia. What are some of the reasons why it's coming early onset with younger people? In the past, it was thought of in elderly issue. Why is that happening with younger people now?
Well, I can really only, you know, have some ideas about it. I can't say for sure those are the
Right.
reasons. I mean, you have to think of everything with some of the bad things that are in our food now, less exercise. A lot of people are taking medications and drugs, which we don't know. They barely know what happens with one drug, let alone two, three, four, five, six drugs in a row, what they do together. It's too many possibilities to study that. So they just give you drugs and hope that they're not going to cause other problems. I don't know if it's because of, I hate to blame everything on cell phones in the digital world, but it definitely affects children's brains to be using digital modalities very young. Their brain actually rewires differently.
Mm.
And computers, if you read about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and some of the early guys, they kind of programmed it around the human brain, how it works, and the dopamine hits that people love from looking at their phones and videos and so on. So I don't know if we're just getting lazy. I mean, we're just not using our brain enough. When we were kids, we had to use our imagination daily. I mean, we went outside with a stick and a rock and had to have a good time. And now you're racing cars and, you know, having sword fights and killing aliens, but that's not your imagination. You're just running
No.
through an algorithm that they've developed that pleases your brain. So I wish I knew more answers, but I know that the things that I just said, the exercise, using your own brain, reading, being social, learning new things, not being stagnant with your brain, eating too much sugar. There's a condition, type 3 diabetes, that many people have not heard of. And that's where there's actually too much sugar in the brain. They usually have type 2 diabetes, but sugar in the brain is like fire. It damages neurons and the structure of the brain itself. And so, I'm bad on sugar.
Yeah.
I try to get people off of sugar. So, I just think that it's a whole bunch of things that I think we should all try to hit a little bit on each of them, just as an insurance to protect our brains for later. I think you agree with that.
Yeah. Well,
It's hard to do them all, but be aware of the ones that are the big hitters, like exercise.
well, the brain is a muscle, and we know if we don't lift or use the muscle, it atrophies, and you're giving it no reason to get stronger. And some of the research I've seen on it, she moved away, but she was one of my clients. She's one of the foremost experts on dementia. She's Harvard. I mean, she's at Harvard. She moved to the Boston area, and she literally looked at me and said, or asked me, "Do you know why I continue to work out?" I said, "Why?" I was like, "Prevent dementia." I was like, "What do you mean?" We've done all the research. I'm at Harvard. I'm one of the literally top experts in the world. And she says the quickest, easiest way to influence or prevent dementia is to actually exercise. And she mentioned, similar to what you said, obviously we won't want to do all those things that you mentioned, but when you exercise, there's blood flow to the brain. The capillaries open up in the brain. And she says that's one of the main simple ways to help prevent dementia. And that just hit so hard to me because it's just working out. And so if you
Just
combine
working
all
out.
the, yeah, just working out, and not only just working out, doing things with a coach or a trainer where you actually have to use or utilize hand-eye coordination
Mhm.
and
Complex movements.
complex movements. You want to just not walk straight ahead because they've done studies on retirement people when they start shuffling their walking gait.
Mhm.
That's when the mortality rate goes up for a number of reasons. One of the main ones is because that is a predictor of increasing the possibility of falling. And you know what happens when somebody with not good bone structure, not good muscles, when they fall. I think the rate on people when they break their hip, the mortality rate after that is astronomical.
Especially with women. It's terrible. No, it's a very
Yeah.
high rate. Terrible. Well, think about, I mean, I'll just pick 1850, 1875. Everything was pretty much hard in our life. Getting water, getting food, gardening, or hunting, and whatever we had to do was physical. Working on farms, and they didn't have cars, and they had to do a lot of walking through. The villages in Europe are built around how far you can walk. It's a circle basically. Well, now we can drive anywhere we want. So we've just done less and less and less, and we're built to be physical beings. I mean,
Yep.
if the people that, I mean, there's people in their hundreds that are still doing a marathon. There was a guy in India that did a marathon at 100 years old. I've got a picture in my office of a woman 100 years old who swims every day. I mean, she's there every day swimming. And those are some of my role models. We glorify the youth, through social media, all the young and cute and handsome and great bodies. Well, I'm looking up more to the old ones now. Like, how did you get here like that? I want to know what they did. So I'm questioning seniors all the time of their habits. And there's a lot of books out there now talking to centenarians that are, over 100 years old. And you and I have talked about the blue zones. And
Yep.
most of the blue zone people are doing something physical in their life, along with some of the other things we talked about with
Yeah.
social interactions and good food and all that kind of stuff. So, but we've gotten, everything's about making it easier. I mean, imagine how hard it used to be to wash your clothes in the river versus throwing them in the wash and putting the timer on and put them in the dryer and you're done. So things have gotten a lot easier. You'd think we would do more, but some people, they go to work and come home and don't do anything else. And you and I can't imagine that. My body would feel terrible if I didn't exercise. So, that's what we preach, right?
Yeah, and I've noticed that some of the people that you just described, it's been so long since they actually felt good, confident, strong energy that they can't even viscerally pull up those feelings. And a lot of times when people come in, we have to have the the coming to Jesus talk where it's, do you think you have no energy? Because a lot of people say the following, not all, I'm too tired to work out. Is it really that, or is it you're tired because you don't work out?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. They get tired. I had a job for a while. I went, got up, went to job, sat on a computer all day, came home, and I was tired. I was working out my whole life, but I thought, I'm not tired. I probably burned 200 calories sitting at a desk all day. I haven't done anything, but we're so lack of oxygenated blood, and we're not moving things around. We're stagnant. Um, I think that's what you're talking about. They
Yeah.
think they're tired, but they're not. If they got into the gym or the pool or the tennis courts or something, I know they'd feel better. I mean, they're going to be tired in the beginning until they get in shape, which really doesn't take too much time. And they're just amazed at how much better they feel.
I would, when people come in, we do what we can to set expectations. And then one of the things I absolutely tell them, and as long as they show up twice per week, within 2 to 4 weeks, you are going to feel better energy, better sleep, just because of the serotonin and dopamine that's now going through the body and the blood flow in the brain as well. And so that's been a big change with a lot of people where they have that, like, they're the blue pill versus red pill. Now it's, oh, okay, if I'm not feeling good or if I'm tired, I need to move my body.
Hmm.
And they even, I remember the story, I think it was the Panama Canal. I'm going to remember as much as I can about it. I think if I get some of the details wrong, it is what it is. But I believe it was the French who started digging that Panama Canal, and they used lots of labor, and then it would rain, and then things would get flooded again, and a lot of people died. And they tried this several times, and they finally gave up. And then I believe an American corporation with some scientists came in, and this is before they knew about malaria and mosquitoes. And what they found out was they taught the local populace if there's any water that is still after the rains, you need to either cover it up or dump it so it becomes running water.
Right.
And it got rid of the whole issue. And essentially, what happens if the water stays stagnant, bacteria accumulates, mosquitoes, and then it spreads,
Yep.
malaria and things like
Yep.
that. That's the same thing with the human body.
Yep. That's right. It might have been yellow fever that killed everybody in the
Mm.
French production, if I remember.
Okay.
But they got rid of all the water. They dug everything out, and they started from scratch and just um, got rid of all of the ways that the mosquitoes could thrive, and that's what worked. And they weren't dying of it anymore. But it was terrible. A lot of people did die. In fact, I asked a patient today, would you rather drink water out of a moving stream or a stagnant stream? I mean, no one's going to say a stagnant stream. We've all
Right.
seen how ugly they look. I mean, you're not going to drink that. And you're right. It's the same thing with the body. Motion is lotion. Keep moving, keep going, no matter what. Find something you can do. And there's always something you can do that's going to stimulate your body, muscles, and brain. If it's seated yoga,
Yeah.
eye exercises, breathing exercises for the lowest level, and all the way up to the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, and it's also a really good antidepressant. Antidepressant. I think it's the number one
Well,
thing. The one of the reasons I continue to work out is just because it's in my DNA. I could not imagine life not working out. It's an impossibility to me.
mhm.
And part of it is for function. The other part of it is I can be incredibly vain, and I like that part, and I think that can be productive. But also, it's because of how I feel.
Mhm.
I feel amazing, and I actually will at times pair my working out with language learning. 'Cause and I found this out by accident. I speak a decent amount of Russian, and this was a few years ago, and I was a little frustrated with my progress. And I said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to try this when I work out. I intuitively wanted to try it because I feel my best working out. And the results were shocking. What usually would take me about 30 minutes to memorize, learn, and then be able to say it without looking at the paper took me 2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah. That's a,
And insane. And what I saw, and I looked it up, it's because the neurotransmitters are firing because you're working out and the blood flow
mhm.
is going. And so it becomes stickier and it stays there. And a lot of times, and I think that's one of the reasons why some of the most successful entrepreneurs get the best ideas when they're walking, because the
Yeah.
blood flow and the neurotransmitters are firing. And man, does that even, like, saying that you're supercharging your brain when you do that. And so those are one of the things, if you're having trouble memorizing things or learning stuff, you don't have to do it in the gym because you want to pay attention, but when you're walking, that might be something to explore.
I would agree with that. Every time I was stuck at school, I'd try to go for a swim or go to the gym and get motivated again, get energized, and I felt fresh and I could remember more. I felt like my hard drive was full. And after exercising, it just feels like it opens up space and your body's more receptive, I think, to learning. You feel better, especially with all the endorphins and all the feel-good chemicals that you produce when you exercise. And it's sad, some people don't even know what that feels like. They've never been to that state where they feel better naturally, because our brain is a chemistry set. I mean, it's there to help us either to feel pain or not feel pain, or to feel joy or happiness or being content. But I can almost guarantee you that if you exercise, you're going to be way better off in all of those categories.
All those categories, and I make the joke whenever this rarely happens, but if you see somebody that has a little road rage or is like losing it in the car, they got some pent up aggression in them. And this is something, even when I was training MMA and jiu-jitsu, some of the people that were the calmest when we went out were these pro fighters, because they just exercise that primal aggression. And it could be as little as, when we have the women come in here, they'll throw medicine balls. We'll tell them, slam it like you want to break it, slam it like you're pissed off.
Hmm.
And sometimes we're so repressed inside. And then working out, I feel what I notice, it taps into that primal expression that I think we have just lost because we become spectators too much. You go back to watching all the screens, like it's, Orwell 1984. It's just a screen teaching us what to do. So that's another huge benefit, is getting out of your head and into your body. When you do these high velocity movements or something that's strenuous, you can't think about the thing that's bothering you all day long. You're forced into your body. And I think that's one of the biggest benefits that people share with us, is they're not in their head and they're in their body for at least that 45 minutes, a few days a week when they come in here.
It's great to get your mind off of the rest of your life and just be physical. And I'm glad you're having them slam it, because when else do you do that in the real world? We're actually taught to be softer and calmer and don't get upset. And well, yeah, it's human nature to get upset. It could be for good reasons, bad reasons, but it's part of the human aspect, is to have these emotions and these frustrations. And, there's a lot of things in our world that can make us frustrated. You take somebody from some small village and you throw them on Highway 101 on a Friday afternoon and see how they do on the car. I mean, they're going to freak.
Yeah.
We're actually very healthy in a way in the Bay Area if you have to deal with things like that. If you learn how to, drive through traffic and deal with weather and, slowdowns and idiots out there, you're actually healthier. It's harder on the brain, but if you take a villager, they're going to freak. Because I brought a friend from New Zealand who was living in the woods basically, and he was just like out of his mind. I was picking him up from San Francisco, and he says, "How do you do this?" I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of an aside here, but I do agree with you. We do need to get that, if it is rage, whatever it is, to get it out, let it be expressed. If you're hitting a punching bag, go ahead and hit it or slam something, or, I really feel that way with weights. You really get to, put your humanism into working the way it's supposed to. So,
Yeah, I actually, I believe I see it. People are actually summoning their spirit. You have to summon your spirit in order to lift something heavier that you're not used to. and that engages you. And that's why I honestly believe whether it's working out at my place, doing the stuff you're doing, whatever vehicle you choose to, and I learned this from Jersey. His last name forgives me, but Tim Ferriss talks about him in all his books. I trained with him at least 2 times, and he has a great saying: hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. And this guy, he's got to be in his 60s now. And last time I checked, he's the world record holder for powerlifting for people his age. And he couldn't, I mean, he's got to be like 140 some odd pounds. And the mastery of his body that he had, his wife, and then their teenage daughter was astounding. And it was just doing these hard things, and really you could tell them they're summoning all their muscles, all their spirits, and directing it in a certain way. And the guy, I mean, he's got to be in his mid 60s, but he has the energy of like a 30-year-old.
It's proof in the
Yeah.
pudding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a sense of achievement too when you think, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm sure you've seen it many times where you get somebody in there and after some time they're doubling their weight and they just can't believe it. And they're so happy and they feel good about themselves that they can do things and get through the world without someone else's help maybe. There's a sense of accomplishment there that gives you some confidence and you feel good about yourself. And I mean, the brain's designed for that. It does reward us. When you do the right things, it will reward you. You do bad things, it'll punish
Yeah.
you. So, stay on the good side.
Yeah. And it's strong in the body, strong in the mind too, as well. And even I think one of the number one things for women I've noticed when they come in is a complete lack of energy. They get way more energy. They psychologically feel better. But all together, I think one of the biggest joys they get sharing is they feel stronger in their body. They walk around and feel stronger, and it builds a sense of self-esteem and confidence, and it just creates this butterfly effect to the rest of the world. Have you run into any of your patients, men or women, that know they should be working out but like have concerns about weight training?
Um, yes, and unfortunately, it's mostly women. They get intimidated by gyms and they don't want to go there. They think they're dirty. They feel intimidated by everyone around them. That they think they all know what they're doing. And you and I know that there's always probably 30% that don't know what they're doing in a gym and they're maybe hurting themselves. And it's a big leap for, I'll just say women at this point, to get into a gym and learn a workout because they don't know how to use the machines. And some of the gyms aren't very good about helping people, which is why your gym's so good because you do an intake and find out what their goals are, but you show them how to work out and you show them different things. And if something doesn't work out, I know you're going to change it for them. Otherwise, the person has to do it themselves, and if they're new to it, they're not going to really know, the variations. I mean, how many ways can you do, your chest? I mean, there's a bunch of ways to do chest or arms. But the ones that do follow through are just they're regulars now. They just do something regular. They've found a way to do it, and they can go on vacation now and walk around Europe or do nature trails and ride bikes now, and it's really they're so excited about it, and I encourage it. I do try to walk my talk because I do exercise 6 days a week myself. Rain or shine, no matter how tired I am, I get up. If I wake up and I'm kind of tired and if I don't go to the gym, I rarely get back to sleep and I just feel worse for not going. I think I should have just gone, just gone and got it over with and you'd be better off. I prefer morning workouts that I don't have to worry about it the rest of the day. Plus I get off kind of late and I'm, when I was younger, I worked out at night. Now I work out, 5:30, 6 a.m. And there's a new book out, by the way, the 5 a.m. crew or the 5 a.m. people, something like that. I
Yeah.
want to get that. It talks about getting up at 5 a.m. and how much you can get done by the time you start work. And then when you come home from work, then you can enjoy the fruits of your labor, which is you have a real appetite You feel relaxed. You're not antsy from not exercising, and you will sleep better. Some people do better working out at night. That's fine, as long as you can get to sleep. And so good points that you're bringing up.
Yeah, it's something I've noticed when we do the intake with new people coming in, especially women. There's two parts of the tip of the spear is feeling intimidated and not knowing what to do.
Not knowing what to
And
do.
yeah, and the fear of being judged, which is
Yeah.
completely understandable. I own a gym, and when I travel the world, even as somebody who's owned a gym for 16 years, my whole life has been working out gyms. Even when I go into, say, if I'm in Europe and Poland or wherever, when I go in the gym, I still feel that feeling.
Hmm.
Oh, it's a new place. Nobody's immune to it, and so, however, it's another thing to allow that fear to hold you back. And everyone has that fear. There's a really good, great, it's my favorite quote by Joseph Campbell. It's the cave you fear to enter has the treasure you seek.
Wow.
And
Nice.
and what we do, we really focus on understanding that, again, the majority of women are going to feel intimidated. They're going to feel they're afraid of being judged for not knowing what to do. And so we cater to that need because I believe, get especially fitness, at the start, it's 80% mental, 20% mechanics.
Okay.
And the reason is because if you feel intimidated, you're probably not going to do it. If you feel like you're going to be judged, you're probably not going to do that. If you feel silly because you don't know what to do, it's a rational survival technique or decision not to do that. So that's what we really do a really good intake on is figuring out their story, dig deep into it, what they're looking to accomplish, if they have any red flags, which are pain or injury, movement dysfunction, any health issues. Yellow flags would be that anything we need to pay attention to, whether that's habits that are not serving them. And then the green flags are what they want to focus on. And then we combine all that stuff together, and then we create a program that meets them for their unique physiology, lifestyle goals, but even more important, for their current fitness and competence level. And so that each and every workout, they are increasing their competence and their confidence. Because I'll tell you, I'm sure you get this with patients. We get a fair amount of people that have been, let's just say it diplomatically, not had a good experience with other trainers or gyms. And it's because they're violating that rule of highly effective people. It's first seek to understand, then to be understood. And I got to understand each person is an individual, and we need to fit this program to meet their needs, not my needs on what I think they should be doing.
Very good. Very good. I agree.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been going to the same gym for about 20 years, and almost the same people are always on the cardio machines. That's all they do all day. And again, it's almost always women, and their bodies don't change. They do the exact same thing every day and they leave. They're not challenging themselves. They're not mixing things up. I don't see them stretching. I don't see them lifting any weights. And then you got the muscle people that just lift weights and don't stretch and don't do cardio. So we have to remember there's balance there, with the trilogy of fitness, cardio, flexibility, and strength.
Yep.
And, a lot of people want to be specialists, and let's say they're very, very strong, but they can't touch their toes and they can't, walk up a steep hill without, being out of breath. So I really believe in balance and trying to incorporate all three of those aspects into their exercises. And because that's more efficient that way anyway. We don't all have a lot of time to be doing all the things that we could do. And we'd be in the gym or wherever all day long. So I'm always trying to maximize my workouts to try to incorporate many of these things. Like when I do a set of weights, I don't always just sit there. I'll hang or I'll stretch, or I might do a completely different muscle group just to, I can't just sit there. I want to do something else. I know that if you want to put on muscle, you need a little longer break in between your lifts, but you can get a lot done and not just sitting there looking at your phone. I mean, your phone at the gym maybe should just be for music.
Right.
I listen to music at the gym, and that motivates me too. And and a lot of people wear things on the gym, and so the ones that are intimidated, I mean, they're really not paying attention to you unless you're just some amazing, super strong person or a I don't know, supermodel. You're not going to get noticed, probably. They're just going to think, oh, there's just some other person at the gym. So for the people out there that are worried about it, people aren't judging you. They'll look at you and that's it. They're concerned about themselves. They're not thinking about you very much. And I see some of the same people every day, and I still don't know who they are. I know who they are. If I walked up to them, I'd say, hey, I really respect how often you come here. You're doing a good job, but you know how it is. If you go to a gym and you start talking to people, you don't get anything done.
Right.
Earbuds is a good idea to let people know you're kind of, you're not available to talk, and leave me alone. Basically, I try not to interrupt people when they're working out. So it's really too bad that there's that intimidation factor, and you just have to go to a gym and look around and see what other people are doing. And if there's no trainer to even help you, I mean, I can't believe these gyms that'll sign you up and not tell you anything. I think it's a hazard, really. But if they were just shown some of the basics, I mean, some of those basic machines are not very hard to figure out. And within no time, people can come up with a little regimen of a workout program and stick to it for a while. And then you can always change it later.
Yeah.
Just get a basic one going, maybe a little bit of cardio, some stretching, and then do some weights.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Essentially, that holy trinity. It's you can refer to it as durability, and that encompasses, flexibility, mobility, control, balance, X, Y, Z, and then the cardio or energy systems and strength training.
Yeah.
And you'll see that all the time. You'll get somebody who's really strong, but their heart is not healthy. That's not good. That's
Those
not
guys
good.
die of heart attacks. The big guys sometimes die of heart attacks because they don't have a good heart, and they have, their clogged arteries, and the blood pressure's off, and they just ignored it. You can't ignore certain parts of your body, especially as you age. So I know we were talking about for this podcast, maybe some of the older group like me. One of the words, I think you and I have talked about it. It's called neoangiogenesis. When you work out, you can actually build new capillaries in your body, which means you're going to have more ways to oxygenate your blood, bring in nutrition, take out metabolic waste, get rid of chemicals that are, possibly cancerous or hardening of the muscles, tissues, making them stiffer. So it's just a win-win situation to find something physical that you like to do in your life and stick to it, at least 3 times a week, if not. I think 3 kind of keeps you where you are. 4, there's growth. And then 5 and 6, you can really make some really good changes and have the kind of body and the function of the body that you want. It's just a lot of people are busy, but, even a 20-minute good workout, you can get a lot done in 20 minutes. They've shown that through research now. Even a walk after dinner will lower your blood sugar in the morning considerably, because muscles can actually take in sugar themselves and get rid of it without having to use insulin and the pancreas to take care of it. So you don't want that sugar floating around too long, because then you become chances of getting type 2 diabetes, which is just rampant in our country, if not the world. Even China now has a big problem with it, and they never did before. And some people say it's because of the introduction of a lot of the Western foods, the McDonald's and same stuff that we have. But that's nutrition. That's another topic. But just real quick, you said something earlier. Now, my age group and older, women were really kind of, discouraged from playing sports, and, they weren't playing sports. They didn't think they could. But man, the women nowadays, man, they're just gung ho. There's women much lighter than me lifting way heavier than me at the gym. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And I'm so impressed. And I wish more of the youth could just see what their bodies are capable of. It gets you excited, doesn't it? When you think, wow, I didn't think I could do that. Now I can do 10 of them, or I can double it, or, whatever. I think as humans, we like to be measured. Like, where do we stand on the scale of, how much can a 65-year-old bench for a woman or a man? So you kind of know whereabouts you are. I mean, if you're at that level, then you're good. And if you're way below, I really think you should do something about it because those standards do mean something. At least kind of have a ballpark of where you should be
Yeah.
at your age and your sex. And I think you follow that quite a bit because you have all different age groups.
Yeah, all different age groups and keeping track of people's results. Won't give away all of it, but we do strength testing. We create that baseline, and then that allows us to build a plan for safe, effective advancement. But then we do strength testing again, and you'll see people that are just, especially the women that are shocked. I can't believe I can pick up an 80 or 90 pound dumbbell and hold it up here like a goblet and do a
Hmm.
squat. And that's, it's so fun to see their just surprise and then the self belief go through the roof. And then I think that's one of the main things we really want to teach women is strength training, because back to what you mentioned, you'll see people that are putting all their eggs in one basket. And this is a huge issue with women. They will do a lot of cardio, they'll lose weight not knowing what type of weight they're losing, and
Yeah.
more times than not they're losing muscle mass, which creates a horrible loop of the following. They lose fat, but they're also losing muscle, which destroys their metabolism, which also puts them a little bit more risk for type 2 diabetes if their eating is not great, because you mentioned the muscle almost acts like a sugar sink. It sucks the sugar out of the bloodstream and can house it, which it protects you against type 2 diabetes. But when they can't maintain that rigid workout schedule or the diet that is very restrictive, there's a massive yo-yo effect of gaining way more muscle, because now they didn't do any strength training. So they have less muscle mass, which affects their ability to burn calories at rest, which affects their metabolism. And it creates this vicious cycle that is very hard to get out of.
I wanted to bring up, I think almost everybody knows the term osteoporosis now, which is thinning of the bones, as opposed to having a hard bone. The worst kind of bones, you almost think about it like styrofoam, where it's just going to collapse because it hasn't been worked hard. Bones love weight. They stay strong for it, and they prove that with the cosmonauts that used to go up for 6 to 9 months in the old days. They didn't exercise in space, and they came back with osteoporosis. And these are some of the fittest people in the world, these
Yeah.
astronauts. But they want to learn, I want them to learn the word sarcopenia with an S, sarcopenia. Sarco means muscle, and penia is a loss of. It's a very important issue because as we get older, it's very, very hard to build muscle. I mean, you want to increase the size of the muscle cells, but once you lose muscle at an older age, man, it's really hard to get back. And you want to protect what you have now. And it's much easier now to do some weights now than try to do it when you're in your 60s, 70s, or 80s. And so sarcopenia is a word I wish was banded around more often because, I keep talking about women, but very few men, because I question on probably 90% of my patients if they're getting enough protein. And
Yeah.
men rarely need to add any protein to their diet. They just like protein, I think. I'm being general here, but women think, well, I only get this many calories a day, and I don't want to waste it on some, let's say, some meat or chicken or fish. I'd rather have, maybe some carbs or something with fat on it. And to learn that no matter what, you got to keep eating protein. You can only absorb so much at a time, so you can't have all your protein at one meal. Otherwise, it turns into sugar. So I'd like to caution the people that aren't getting enough protein. And just a real simple formula, if you want one, is you want to get at least half your body weight in grams. So people really do need to look at their labels. So if you weigh 150, you should be getting about 75 grams, preferably in 3 or 4 doses a day. And if they have to go to the protein powders, get a good one, something that's clean. Whey and albumin are probably the best. If you want plant protein, that's okay too. They have plenty of those out there now. And then just a quickie on Ozempic and all the GLP-1s. they're finding that the hunger goes away and people stop eating and they're getting sarcopenia. So they're losing, as you just said, not just fat, but they're losing muscle. And that's just not good. So I wish there were some warnings almost if you're going to be taking those things to stay on your protein and don't just sit there and wait to wither away, because you will. And they lose their face, the muscles in their face and the fat in their face. And it's what's it called, a Ozempic face or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I get questioned about, should they be on that or not? And I'm having a real hard time coming up with a good answer, because I think that if you're going to use it, is there an end to it? I mean, don't you just have to keep using it? Because the ones that stop do gain the weight back. And that's generally what happens with some of these so-called miracle drugs. And I still think it's pretty new. The jury's out, really, on the GLP-1s, and there's whole bunches of them coming out now, and they're making them cheaper and easily accessible now. So I'm sure you've gotten a few questions about those.
I definitely have. And what I asked them, are you doing the fundamentals? And because, it can't be just the Band-Aid, because again, I don't know, we've seen these commercials in the past 15, 20 years. Did you take X thing back in the 80s? Now you qualify for XYZ. Contact our lawyer office.
Yeah.
And we just don't have enough data. And it's similar to when people ask me what supplements or should I be taking creatine or this, and how many hours of sleep are you getting? How many grams of protein are you getting? Are you hydrated? Those are the fundamentals.
Yeah. You're breathing.
And breathing is huge. Breathing is huge. Yeah. I don't want to get sidetracked on it. I want to love to go back to breathing, because that ties into so many things. It's like our software program, essentially. But I do what I can to really teach people weight literacy. And what I mean by that, we were taught financial literacy, the difference between assets and liabilities, good debt, bad debt. And you can actually do this experiment on people. And I guarantee you, I have so much data over 20 years, thousands of people, I can predict the following, what's going to happen. Somebody says, I lost weight. They could say, you lost 10 pounds. And then ask them, what kind of weight did you lose? They actually can't even hear the question. It's not in their selective focus, their reticular activating system. And they'll just repeat 10 pounds. And I'll say, congratulations. What type of weight did you lose? And here's what happens. They turn their head like a confused animal or dog and say, what do you mean? Well, it's like, well, is it muscle, fat? Did you gain, lose bone density, water weight?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's important, and that's why a good BMI type tester machine, or get your body fat tested, is a really good tool to have. That way, I had one in my office for many years. I think it's getting a little old now, but I wish I could remember the name of the franchise. I think I told you about it. That you can go in there monthly and get that checked with some subscription price. There's one in North Beach. I think there's one in the peninsula. And they'll do a DEXA scan to check your bone density. And so the people that are trying to change their bodies, that's the scientific way of doing it. If you're 50% body fat, you got to lower that. But you're right. You could lose 20 pounds and your body fat's still 50%. You've just done yourself a huge disservice. You've just lost, the muscle. And I think you and I have said it before that, cardio, you did an hour of cardio, that burn you're going to get might last 8 or 9 hours. Whereas if you're lifting weights, it can be almost 24 hours of an increased metabolic burn. And that's what people really want. They want their body. Unfortunately, as humans, we're trying to waste energy. Animals don't waste energy. They eat as much as they need and they stop. You can't overfeed a deer. They're just going to stop, because they know if they eat too much, they're going to be, they're going to get caught by some predator. We don't have that problem. We're not worried about a bear chasing us, but dollar for dollar, getting the metabolism fired up and regular. I mean, once you do it enough, it's easy to get your metabolism burning. If I eat, too much at night, man, I'm just burning up in bed. I know my body's burning it, and I can tell I eat more than I normally do, because I'm actually sometimes sweating. And I'm not that cold that often. I'm pretty warm. I know you've done cold plunges and things like this. More discomfort, of course, but getting your body fat tested would be a good thing to do. And I wish the doctors did more of that. I don't know why they don't. They'll check your blood, urine,
Yeah.
and they don't check your body composition.
Yeah, we actually have. I mean, I think I paid like $15,000 for it, so it's very
Yeah.
well. It's an
Okay.
in-body scan, it and it's the similar model they use in NFL, professional sports, but it measures visceral fat. That's that
Mhm.
dangerous fat around your
Mhm.
internal organs,
That's
which
right.
is linked to heart disease, diabetes.
Yep.
It looks at your body fat and it looks at your muscle mass, and not only that, it looks at your segments because ultimately how your clothes fit, how you look, how you feel is the most important. And I think that's the hardest things. It's such an often used word, but like breaking people out of the freaking matrix because
Mhm.
we've grown up with it's just weight loss. And really describing the difference. For example, you can lose 5 pounds of muscle and then you lost no fat. And that's actually a horrible thing for so many different reasons.
Mhm.
And so that's the education process is teaching people weight literacy, that it's not just weight, it's what type of weight. Just like, is it an asset or is it a liability? That's the easiest way I teach people. Muscle is an asset, fat is a liability. We want to get rid of liabilities and increase assets. And so that again is the hardest thing to get people to figure it out. But then what I notice, and when people come in, we put them in a framework where we look at the ratio. It's the weight, it's the fat, and it's the muscle, and there's certain ratios. And literally 100% of the time, I can predict within 5 minutes where they stand just based by describing their weight loss, weight gain history, what they're talking about, what they're not talking about. And typically, virtually 100% of the time, people that say, I don't feel strong, I don't have energy, their ratio of fat to muscle is highly, there's just way more fat and way less muscle in proportion. So the highest percentage of weight they carry is in fat, the lowest weight they carry is in muscle 100% of the time. So if you say, I don't have enough energy, I look at muscle as horsepower. You don't have enough horsepower. And then if you have diabetes, any heart issues, high blood pressure, I know your percentage, your ratio of fat to muscle is going to be way more fat, way less muscle. And what's great about this is we track this, we get them on healthy habits, get them weightlifting, weight training in a safe and effective manner. And then the ratio starts moving in the right direction. Then they start saying, I have more energy because they literally have more muscle and more strength, i.e., more horsepower. And what's great about it is them getting off the blood pressure medication. That is amazing. So we've had so many clients get off that just by working out.
So, as I mentioned earlier, the neoangiogenesis uh, process that happens in your body, if you have more tubes carrying blood, your blood pressure is going to go down because there's more tubes basically for the blood to be in. So, people are trying to understand why that would happen. That's a big reason right there. And that should give you a lot of satisfaction that you've lowered your blood pressure naturally and brought it back to where it should be, because it does push up against your arteries. And I think we went over it on another talk where the artery walls get basically scratches in them from high blood pressure
Mm.
pushing too hard against the body, because we have little particulate matter in our blood that can actually scratch things, and that's where the cholesterol plaques can attach to these little cuts, and then that just grows and grows and grows. So if people are trying to figure out why they want to have lower blood pressure, that's one reason, because it's going to help lower getting vascular disease with their arteries getting clogged, and possibly getting a stroke, or basically the stroke is something you definitely don't want to have. And so that the machine you have is a very powerful tool because people can see right there, oh, I'm this percent body fat and I only have this percent muscle. So I hope that's a big motivator for people to, they're probably excited to get retested when they've done the work and see some positive changes.
Yeah, and it's so predictable. We just have the data. We know it works. We have so much data that as long as people show up twice per week, they're going to get results. And obviously, all the other things, getting the amount of protein that you need, the amount of water, the amount of sleep, and then start fine tuning the total calories, the macros, things like that too as well. And the other thing you look at, we talked about the heart is a muscle. I'm sorry, the brain is a muscle. The heart's a muscle too. And that's, stress tests, right? There's a reason why we do stress tests to see how much stress your heart can handle, and it predicts so many different things. And one of the reasons why it's so important to do cardio, or what I would call energy systems, is I'm not going to go too deep into the science of it, layman terms, but there's different types of cardio. So people will hear about HIIT, zone 1, zone 2. Those, we've known about these terms for like 50 years. Just every few years, they're described in marketing in a different way by a different coach.
Rename,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's just a new name. It's the same thing we've been doing for a long time. But I kind of dumb it down to two muscle adaptations for the heart. There's a certain type of cardio that you do that's more high intensity. So it teaches the muscle to become more powerful and stronger and pump blood in and out quicker, and it gets stronger. And then there's a certain type of cardio where it kind of expands it a little bit wider like a balloon, so more blood flow can get in and out, like a bigger gas tank. And both these different type of adaptations feed off of each other as well. And so that's another reason why, just like you mentioned, you shouldn't just be doing cardio. You want to do strength training. You shouldn't just be doing HIIT training. You should be doing some endurance stuff. You shouldn't just be doing endurance training. You should be doing some HIIT training. You want to take the brain, the heart, the muscles through all the things that it was built to do, up
Exactly.
and down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're running from a bear, you're going to be going as hard as you can for a short amount of time, hopefully,
Yeah.
and your heart better be there. And what you're talking about is called stroke volume, how much blood
Yes.
per pump. And they can easily measure that. And that's, you want a big stroke volume when you need it. And you're right, that's a different kind of a heart function than if you're going to run for 30 miles one day. That's just going to be the same amount of energy needed. Whereas if you're sprinting from a bear, you better be ready to have those fast twitch muscles and a good stroke volume, and really get those lungs working so you can get the heck out of there, and save yourself, right? To protect yourself, which is what ultimately it's for. And I'm glad you brought up heart rate variability, because that is
Yep.
so important to see how healthy your heart is, how fast it can recover. Otherwise, you're wasting beats. I tell people you only get so many beats per lifetime. Don't waste them. Now it goes up really high during workout, but you'll see over the rest of the hours of your day, it's beating less than it would have, and you've saved yourself, hours, days, weeks of your life, and that makes sense, right? That you only
Oh
get
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so many heartbeats. So people think, oh, I only get so many heartbeats. I mean, it's obvious, but when you think about it that way, if you only get, I can't remember how many they think, it's over a billion or something. If you want to figure it out, just take your pulse and multiply it by 60 minutes per hour, 24 hours, 365 days. You can figure out how many heartbeats you've had. So heart rate variability means that it's like, just like your car, you're not going to rev up your engine to go 30 miles an hour. You're going to try to keep it right where the engine wants to be, so you're not wasting fuel and you're putting extra stress on your engine. So I'm glad you know what that is, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it's a really good study.
Yeah, I got really deep into that in my own training. And when I was working with a lot of professional fighters that were fighting on TV, I was obsessed with that. And we would actually have the heart rate monitor. We'd have, it was at the time isolated. There was only two models in the entire world. Now everyone has it. And each day we would measure their HRV. And then I would adjust the training depending on their HRV. So Is it going to be in the green? We can push it a lot more. If it's in the yellow, we'll stay in the moderate. And it's that interplay between fitness and fatigue. Because again, you should, just like a car, you should be able to do all the things the car was designed to do. Not all the time, but at the right time, at the right place. And I even tell people in here, there's times where you should be out of breath. That's what your body was built for. Now there's some context. You shouldn't be out of breath all the time because you want to adapt to that same stimulus. But the best athletes in the world, this Sunday we watch football. They're out of breath if they run full tilt 40 yards.
Yeah,
And
they come off the field for a play or two to recover.
yeah,
But
yeah,
they're not built for, speed all the time. They're,
right.
spurts of speed. Meanwhile, they're pushing up against, 340-pound guys, every single play if they're a lineman. Yeah, you got to adapt your workouts to what you need. I mean, most of us need kind of the same thing. None of us are, I don't know, having really physically hard, stressful jobs all the time. But just doing the basics, like you said, just doing the basics, and that'll usually satisfy most of your requirements physically.
Yeah, I would say. And then one of the challenges, and there was a lot of bought in because I had a lot of success with these athletes, is I almost look at it like a game of 21 blackjack. For those of you that don't know the game, the object is they get as close to 21 without going over, and you have a certain amount of chips. And really depending, if you have a lot of chips, you can take some more risk. And if you get over 21, you bust, but it's okay because you have all these chips. And that's your recoverability. That's how much fitness you have. But there's going to be times where we see this with athletes who are training for Tough Mudder or any of these things, and they'll just train all out hard all the time. And what that kind of is like is at the blackjack table, you keep asking for a hit and you keep busting going over 21, and then you start losing all your chips. And what tends to happen, there's so much fatigue that it's not that you're out of shape, it's just you're under recovered. And when you're under recovered and there's too much fatigue, what happens? Injuries start piling up.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And so having some principles of how the body actually works and proactively putting in times where you pull back a little. And again, I did this with a lot of the professional fighters. They are doing boxing, striking, wrestling. They're training so hard. Sometimes they would come in, and I would train baseball players, basketball players. They're so beat up where it doesn't make sense for me to fatigue them more because that's going to downgrade the performance in the sports. So a lot of times it would be working on what you talked about, the durability standpoint, flexibility, mobility, and then being strategic enough to work cardio, but more of the stroke volume. And so that would bring up the heart rate variability. They would be able to recover, and then they would be able to get back to their sport and perform better because you knew how the body actually worked and how all these things like the fitness and fatigue, how they influence each other. And you could start predicting what will actually happen to the athlete if you come from a scientific and strategic standpoint.
Have you ever seen the Tour de France bicycle race where they race for 3 weeks around France? I mean, they have these guys hooked up now, and they can tell the guy, "Hey, you're going over your wattage right now. You're gonna die in a couple of minutes, of fatigue if you don't slow it down." They know exactly how much that guy can do. It's unbelievable how they dialed in they are now. And they say there's a big hill coming up, so get into this amount of wattage, and they can see on their screen how much wattage they're putting out, which is power. And they know the limits down almost to the minute. It's unbelievable how they dialed that in the last 5 or 6 years. It's and we should all kind of know that about ourselves. And to a point, we probably do know what's going to wipe us out. There's things in the pool that I do that I know I'm going to be tired from, and need a little longer at the wall to rest. But there's so many tools out there. I really fought getting an Apple Watch, but I finally did. And it's so everybody knows that's measuring your biometrics, your pulse rate, your oxygenation, your how many calories you burned. So take advantage of some of these new tools that are out there, the Aura Ring, how well your sleep is. It doesn't mean you have to use it the rest of your life, but once you use them for a while, you kind of get an idea where you stand, how much you're doing, how well your sleep is, and to the point where you kind of know if you've done too much. And yeah, you can definitely over exercise, and then you start hurting your tissues, and there's a buildup, and yeah, you need some help. You need to. I do try to rest. I take Mondays off, and just rest except for work. But I'm glad you're talking about that too, because some people just get a little too crazy and they're doing too much and they're hurting themselves. It's not going to happen in a day. It's a 1,000-mile walk. One step at a time.
Yeah, and to your point, it on the professional level where there's millions and billions of dollars at stakes, they know when to push, they know when to pull. Just like with the example with the Tour de France, and I've actually been in Paris during the Tour de France,
All
and
right.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I missed it by one day, but it was all set up, so we're actually able to go there and see the whole setup, which is really cool. And then I watched it in Paris when they're like a town over, which was great experience too as well. Yeah, I think we'll definitely continue this chat too as well. Yeah,
Well, we did a lot. We went over a lot, and I don't want to overwhelm anybody. Just
yeah,
little bits at a time. Just try to change one thing this week, a little bit at a time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. This life of ours. If you want to go long and low, you got to take your time. And learn a little bit as we go. Keep learning. So I
yeah,
appreciate you having me on, though. I do appreciate it.
yeah.